We are joined today by Dr. Aquelis Gordon, who's done quite a bit of research around the Myers-Briggs personality profiling system. And I have speculated a ton over the past few years about Donald Trump and just trying to get a little bit of knowledge about how his brain works. So, Quay, I want to know, what is up with the Myers-Briggs profile for Donald Trump? Obviously speculative, he hasn't done the test, but you know people. What would you say he is and what does it mean?
Sure. So most people think that Trump is an ESTP, that is to say, an extroverted sensing, thinking perceiver. He's such a good prototype of this type that whenever I'm seeing students or clients and they test this, probably not clients as much, but I often will say this is Trump's type, and he's an unusual version of that type, and so it's sort of a good example and a bad example in that he's really extreme in some of the ways that type can function and some of that type's characteristics. And so he's an extrovert, just to break it down, right? So he's an extroverted person. This means that he's really focused more on his outside life, his outside experience, and he is focused on his inner experience. It doesn't necessarily mean he's a partier. It doesn't necessarily mean he's not shy, but those tend to go along with the fact that you're spending more psychological time outside yourself. And so Trump's not shy, and he tends to be pretty outspoken and pretty sociable as well. The S in this case stands for sensor, which means that the thing that he's focused on mostly in the world, that combined actually with the P at the end, suggests that he's really focused on sort of the literal details of the world. You see this in Trump's personality, in his focus and interest on things that are beautiful, the fact that he likes really extravagant and elaborate things. This includes, not just things, but also people, women, usually, right? That he's got this real focus on kind of the way things look, the way they feel, the way they smell, the way they taste. We kind of know the way he eats, for instance, is just kind of, greasy, probably very good tasting food, but not the kind of concern for like its health benefits or those things that you would have to intuit about the food without just kind of tasting it. So that is the most dominant aspect of his personality, is that sort of looking for what's beautiful, looking for what's appealing to his literal senses, is what that S stands for. And then he's a thinker, and folks say,
wait, I'm gonna have to stop you right there.
Yeah,
you're gonna need to provide some evidence. Where are your citations, sir?
Sure, I'll give you. Not citations, but I'll give you some analysis at least. The thing about thinkers is they're not necessarily smarter. They're not necessarily smarter. What's going on for a thinker is that they're making decisions based on their own, in Trump's case in particular, their own sense of logic, their own sense of facts, right? So versus a feeler who's going to be making decisions based on how they feel about things or how other people feel about things, a thinker is going to try to be making decisions based on the facts or the context of the situation, like what needs to happen. But a thinker is only as intelligent as the facts that they have in their head. We know about Trump that he does all sorts of things with facts. And so for him, when he's kind of put fact A to fact B means I should do X, Y, or Z, well, his facts are what they are, who knows? And so even though he thinks he's being logical, and this is one of the problems, I would say, with how he comes across in policy sometimes, is that he thinks he's being right because he's being, in his mind, logical. But he's not. His facts are off base, and so he's not coming to often a conclusion that is really based in true fact. Now, if he was a feeler, he'd have a better sense of, well, this is just how I feel about it. This isn't necessarily truth. This isn't necessarily fact. It's just my feelings. But he doesn't have that capacity, or he doesn't tend to have that capacity. So he will state, this is the truth. People are saying, right? And that's enough for him to kind of build a case for X, Y, and Z. So you just really get, in general, the ESTPs, this really kind of brash. Folks call this type the Chad type, if you will, kind of wanting to look a certain way, very much about image, very much about being kind of the party guy or girl, not caring too much about other people's opinion, doing what they want when they want to do it, right? And so in all of those kind of plus and minus ways, I think Trump adds up to that. And he also does so in such an extreme way that sometimes I fear to tell students or clients that they share a type with him.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I have a couple questions. The first is, so you described the being interested in how things look, wanting luxury excess, the eating, the food that tastes good, just wanting to experience these things. So what it doesn't seem, I'll be nice, it doesn't seem that this really translates into wanting his own appearance to be very good. I understand he paints a circle of color on his face. Maybe that's evidence of it, but he doesn't seem to think that he needs to keep himself in a certain type of shape. He wears really ill-fitting clothing. I don't know, is this just him making mistakes but still prioritizing it? Or is this not necessarily something that you would expect to be consistent?
I think you would expect, or I think you can see from Trump that he is really focused on his own image. I mean, it's not like, I just showed up like this, and he's gonna tell you he looks good and his hair looks good and his his makeup or his tan, whatever he's calling it that day, looks good, right? He's gonna say all of those things because he is focused on that. Again, his sense of what looks good to some degree are based on the facts in his head, which is to say blonde hair looks good, a full head of blonde hair looks good. A nice tan looks good, right? And so like these are the things that he's sort of prioritizing. But again, you got to cut that with such and such tastes good, right? He's not able to necessarily, I think, kind of take away from one to feed the other, right? These type of people, extroverts in general, but this extrovert in particular, are very moment to moment livers. That's why he changes his opinion all the time, by the way, because he doesn't think about the past or the future version of himself or what he said. He's just like, well, I'm just answering the question right now. I'm just eating what's in front of me. I'm just, doing my hair right now. And so he's not going to necessarily think long term about, well, if I eat McDonald's today, I'm not going to look good for the debate in a couple weeks, right? He doesn't think that way. He thinks, I want McDonald's right now, and that's what he goes for.
I mean, who among us hasn't made that mistake?
Yeah, of course.
Yesterday. Okay, that's interesting, and yeah, it's really fascinating. I wish that we had a lot more time, but I do want. Obviously, we can't go in this much in depth, but I want your brief reaction to. First of all, Biden is the guy that's going up against him. I've seen him described as an ESFP. First of all, does that seem accurate to you? And what are some differences we would expect between the ESTP and the ESFP?
I don't know that Biden's an ESFP, so I haven't really thought about what he is, but I'll talk about the difference, and maybe we can, or the viewers at least can think about what if that's true or not. Those two types are actually really, really similar. The fact that they have an E, an S, and then a P at the end are actually saying that they have the same dominant trait in terms of their personality. The difference is when I was describing Trump is making decisions based on his sense of fact, right? His sense of what's right and wrong and how that can be wrong to start with. If Biden is a ESFP, then he's going to replace that in particular with making decisions based on his feelings. How does something make him feel? Not necessarily how it affects someone else, but how it makes him feel. And generally, folks like this, will feel bad if they do bad things, and so they will try to, make good decisions out of those feelings. But it is just kind of a feelings-based thing. What we can see about Biden is that he is a lot more empathic. He is a lot more feelings-based. He does seem to make decisions a lot more so based on his feelings than Trump does.
That makes sense to me. I think so.
Yeah. So I think it's maybe close, but I don't know if that's exactly right.
Okay, yeah, and some of the other letters seem to make sense for him. He does seem somewhat extroverted. Now I've seen Bernie Sanders described as an INFP. So a couple letters different. That's introverted. What's the N?
Intuitive.
Feeling, perceiving. Okay, so what about? Does that seem to strike you as he's a little bit more of an introverted and intuitive person?
I would say those first two letters line up for me, and maybe even the second letter. This type of introvert's one of the most introverted introverts, and so it would be really tough to know if this is who Bernie Sanders really is, because he's not going to be able to really be this guy in on stage. He's not going to be able to be this guy when he's in a public image. He's got to talk. He's got to, be charismatic to some degree or sell his message. This type of person, the INFP, I bet there's a lot in the chat room. They tend to be on the internet a lot. So, but they're really, really sensitive generally, and they have a real empathy for people, but they also have a real sensitivity about who they are and things that are said or done to them. And so they can be in that way a little bit prickly, and we do see that for instance, about Bernie Sanders, that he does come across as a little bit prickly if you ask him the wrong question in the wrong light. And they're also able, with their intuition, able to kind of put a lot of ideas together or think about a lot of possibilities with regards to ideas. And I would say that this also is reflective of Bernie, who tends to think outside of the box, even just by nature of being a democratic socialist, right? That's kind of off the path because he can kind of see what that might mean for the country, right? He's using some intuition to kind of predict what would come out of that. And so I think it's pretty close. It's tough to tell that type in particular because of how introverted they would be in a more private moment. And that's how you'd be able to tell. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. For one other politician, I'm gonna choose at random. Of all the politicians, I'm gonna go with Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Okay, so I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna start with the first letter. You stop me when I'm wrong, okay?
Okay, sure.
So I'm gonna guess she's extroverted.
Yeah,
Am I right so far?
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna guess that she's intuitive. She's an EN.
Oh, definitely, yes.
I'm gonna guess that she's an ENT, a thinker.
Okay, perhaps.
And then I'm gonna say a P. I think she's an ENTP. What do you think about that? Is that a thing?
It is a thing. Oh, ENTP. That's a really great guess. My first guess would be an ENFP, which is actually my type. And not trying to say anything about that, but I'm just saying, I was just making that connection. But the thing that you'll have to sort of look through to kind of get at that is her passion. ENFPs and ENTPs are both very passionate people when it comes to ideas and discussing those ideas. ENFPs are gonna argue with more passion in the sense of, empathy and how's this gonna make people feel, and you're offending me by saying that thing. Like they're gonna argue with feelings in the mix. They're gonna reference those things, whether it's arguing for someone else's feelings or their own, or did you consider. The T's are gonna, again, try to argue based in fact. They're gonna argue based in this happened and then this happened. How can you say that this happened then? Right? It's not gonna be personal, but it's gonna be kind of personal to their logic in the same way that Trump can be personal to his logic. But again, if you get good facts, then that's gonna work out for you. If you have bad facts, then your logic's gonna be bad. So pretty close, I think, ENTP or ENFP. I say F just because she is a very passionate person, and she does have a way of bringing the facts, but I feel like she's always referencing, the effect that it's having on people. That's the thing she seems to be holding as her bottom line. I would say not just is this right or wrong, but how is this affecting people?
Okay. And I already said this to the Twitch audience, but I'll just throw it out there. I believe an INTJ. Do with that what you will. Chat.
That's why we're so great together, buddy.
Apparently it's a good combination, ENFP and INTJ. That's what I hear. Not saying anything, just saying.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.